Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome everybody to the season premiere of the Penn's Iceberg radio program. I am your host, Casey Stamp. It is so good to have you all back this year, and of course, the Penn's coming out with two huge wins tonight and last night against the Philadelphia Flyers. Tonight was against the New York Rangers. So first off, I just want to say thank you to all of our returning fans on Twitter and on Facebook, on the website, and of course those here listening live tonight on the show. It's been so good to have you guys here, and we are very thankful that you are back despite the long lockout hold. Tonight we've got some great material for you. We've got game analysis of both the Flyers and the Rangers game. We have got some NHL news sort of around the NHL, and we're going to be doing a new segment tonight that we call Warner's Corner, as well as taking your calls and emails. So please hang with us, as this is our first live show. If there are some mistakes, we ask that you bear with us. Either way, it's going to be a fun show, and we hope you guys will listen in. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We now welcome in our expert panel. Luke Courtwright joins us. How you doing tonight, Luke?
I'm doing fine, Case. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Good to have hockey back, eh?
For sure, yeah. Great opening weekend, definitely.
Spectacular opening weekend with two big wins for the Pens. Now we welcome in Jason Kaczynski. How are you doing tonight, Jason?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. The hockey is back. It seems like it's been forever since we've watched the game, but the Pens are 2-0, and the Rangers and Flyers are 0-2, so makes it all that much more sweeter.
Absolutely, it does make it all that much more sweeter. It's really a great couple of games starting out here for the Pens, and with the wins over the victories over the Flyers and the Rangers. We're having a bit of technical difficulties right now. If you'll just excuse us for one moment, trying to pull up some of the statistics for the Flyers game. However, we will be bringing you all the same, the game analysis for the Philadelphia Flyers game. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you as soon as we can get those running. Welcome back here on the Penn's Iceberg. This is your host, Casey Stamp, along with Jason Kaczynski and Luke Courtwright. So January 19th, opening night around the NHL, and the very first day, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers have a huge rivalry game, a rematch of last year's playoff series against the Flyers, and great to have the NHL back on the 19th. In the first period of that game, in the first period of that game, it was Tyler Kennedy at 4:40 of the first period on the power play, making it a 1-0 lead for the Pittsburgh Penguins with assist to Paul Martin and Matt Niskanen. And Tyler Kennedy obviously had some big expectations last year coming onto his new contract. Didn't quite fulfill the expectations for himself, for his teammates, or for the fans, I'm sure. Jason, we'll start with you here. Do you think that Tyler Kennedy will be able to rebound this season and sort of have the year that fans were thinking he was going to have last year?
I definitely think so. He brings a lot of intangibles to the game, and whether he's scoring goals or not, I think he always brings those consistencies. He's got great speed and a great shot, as we know. He's one of the top shot leaders on the team. But he had a good chemistry with Jordan Staal, and it looks early on that he's got some trust with Brandon Sutter, who I think as Pens fans as the season goes on, we're not going to be missing Jordan Staal as much as maybe we thought. But I think Kennedy is definitely playing for that next contract, and he wants to be a contributor, and hopefully if he's doing as good as he can do, perhaps we'll see some time up on the top six and get a chance to skate with Malkin or Sid.
– Luke, your thoughts on that?
No, I agree entirely. Tyler Kennedy is the kind of guy we see all the time, throwing pucks from weird angles, going to the net. And right here on this particular play, Paul Martin just kind of throwing the puck on net on the power play. Kennedy gets out in front and just gets a nice deflection in on Bristoloff.
Absolutely, and hopefully TK can rebound. We know that he had 20-plus goals a couple of seasons ago, and not so great last year. Then again, he wasn't healthy most of last year, and when he was, he seemed to be hitting a lot of posts and really shooting over the net a lot of times, hitting a lot of corners and things of that nature. But going back to the Flyers and Penguins, in the first period, 7:20 in, James Neal scores his first of the year assist from Evgeny Malkin. Now, of course, that is something that we've seen at least 40 times last year. James Neal, this particular goal, though, I was speaking the other day to our inside analyst, Tim Stamp, and I was just telling him how I wanted to see in the opening couple of games one of those quick sort of face-off goals that James Neal sort of makes his money off of. Great job by James. Malkin won the face-off, basically hit it right back to Neal, and Neal has that absolute rocket of a wrist shot, really one of the best I've ever seen as far as pure speed goes, and he made it a 2-0 lead against the Flyers. Flyers really came back, though, at the end of the first period, really strong. Had a couple of power play opportunities that didn't yield any points, but certainly shifted the momentum. And very early on in the second period, in fact, just 23 seconds in, Claude Giroux cut the lead in half to 1, his first of the year. He's coming off a 93-point season last year. A lot of people are talking about him for MVP. I don't know about that. I mean, when you lose a guy like Jaromir Jagr, you're not on the line with him anymore. You've got to rely on Scotty Hartnell and perhaps Braden Shen. I'm not saying that they're not good line mates, but I'm not sure that they're going to have him put up MVP-type numbers. In any case, this game wasn't quite as chippy as you may expect it to be, given the circumstances in the playoff series last year. But this was certainly a spirited game, tons of hits, no fights, really, surprisingly, and I kind of expected maybe right off the face-off, sort of what we saw tonight against the Rangers. The Flyers, that did not happen. And in the third period, with the empty netter Chris Kunitz, with the assist to Paul Martin, who unbelievably outscored Sidney Crosby, that's got to be a first. And he chips in it. Chris Kunitz chips the empty netter in to make it a 3-2-1 final. So the Pens sort of rebounding. A big win for the Pens to start off the year 1-0 against their division rival Philadelphia, who lost yet again today to the Buffalo Sabres by the score of 5-2. We'll get to that a little bit later. And, just a big win for the Pens. Both goalies played spectacularly, but perhaps most importantly, Marc-Andre Fleury got his 227th career victory, surpassing Tom Barrasso, becoming the winningest Penguins goaltender of all time. Here is what Marc-Andre Fleury had to say following the Flyers game.
Happy that we played at a solid game for 6 minutes.
Most about your game today are you particularly pleased with?
There was like little things. Sometimes I was out of control of it. A little bit too much everywhere. The whole rebound play at the end of that, was so. But overall, I just tried to go out there and stop the puck, not think too much long.
What do you sense like on the ice tonight when you guys are trying to kill the penalties? Was there more than you said last year?
Well, I thought today was very successful on the PK, so I think we had confidence that, just one more to kill, and that was it, so I'm stop with this, and the guys did a great job. Yeah. That's a good power play. The guys, they blocked some shots. They would play hard. They were aggressive in the right spots where they had to be, and everybody played their role, and everything worked out well. It's flattering. I think it shows that I played with a lot of good teammates, good players, and Tom Barrasso was a guy that I always look up to. So. To pass him is an honor for me.
You heard Marc-Andre Fleury saying there that it was an honor for him to pass Tom Barrasso, and certainly here at the Pens Iceberg, we do congratulate Marc-Andre Fleury. He is a fantastic goaltender, and despite his not playing so well in the playoffs for the last couple of years, overall he has just been a spectacular player for the Pens. Really been an anchor with so many injuries and so many inconsistencies over the last few years, and the lineup with who's in, who's out, who's injured, who's not. He's really been there the entire time and has been a huge part of the reason that the Pens have been able to maintain success. So a 3-1 victory over the Philadelphia Flyers, and tonight they faced off against the Rangers at MSG, and of course, one of the things that you always notice anytime you have a game at MSG is the ice. It never really seems to be in great shape. The puck sort of tends to bounce all over the place. In any case, the Pens came out fresher legs tonight, scored a couple of goals early, but maybe even more attention-grabbing than that was the fight early on, right off the opening face-off. It was Tanner Glass and Aaron Asham, the former Penguin, going at it early on, and Glass got some good shots in there, rattled Asham early. Not something I ever expected to see. So Asham, I would put him in the top 5 fighters in the NHL. So good job for Glass to pick a fight with a real tough guy early on and try to swing some of the momentum back the Pens' way, and certainly he did, as early in the game, 1:48 into the first period, James Neal scored his second of the year. Once again, the assist to Evgeny Malkin and the other to Chris Letang. Luke, we'll start with you here. James Neal, 40-goal scorer last year. Do you think he repeats that feat?
Well, he's certainly off to a great start, trying to repeat that year he had last year. I think when you have him next to a guy like Evgeny Malkin, he's always going to have that opportunity to put up a lot of numbers, just because people gravitate towards Malkin. If Neal can find himself open, and now with this spot on the point on the power play, that's going to give him even more of an opportunity to get pucks to the net. Maybe now he's not getting the goals himself. Maybe he's just generating rebounds for some of the guys in front. But 3 goals in 2 games, certainly a great start for him.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be nice to see Neal have a chance at 50 and 50, and obviously with a shortened season, you're not going to see that. But 3 goals in 2 games. He's got a great shot. I hit 7 shots last night. I'm not sure exactly how many he had tonight, but he's always looking to shoot, and you want that from your sniper. He talked about after the game that he just tries to get Malkin the puck anytime he's open because he knows he's going to get it back. We saw on the second Pens, Neal's second goal tonight, rather, that Malkin is drawing 3 Rangers to him on the half wall and right to a wide open Neal who sniped it in. And those two just have great chemistry together. They can tell they love playing with one another, and it's a thrill. It's a treat as a Pens fan to watch.
Well, James Neal has that absolute rocket of a wrist shot, as we talked about a little earlier, and certainly we saw a lot of that in the Pens-Rangers game. And then, sort of towards the middle of the period, sort of towards the 10-minute mark, the Pens took a couple of bad penalties. I believe it was Simone Dupre on the first, and they called him for, I believe it was holding. And then, of course, Brandon Sutter off the face-off. That's actually his second face-off penalty. This was apparently one of the new rules. You can no longer shovel the puck with your hand to win a face-off. He did that, and it made it a 5-on-3 situation for the Rangers, and the positioning and the spacing on the 5-on-3 penalty kill wasn't so great for the Pens, particularly Craig Adams, sort of a little bit floating there. It's obviously the goal wasn't fully on him, but Ryan Callahan did score to tie the game up, his first of the year. And, I'm not a big fan of the Rangers, but Ryan Callahan, I can't help but be a fan of this guy. He's a hard-working player. He's always at the front of the net, always in the dirty areas, getting the goals, fighting for possession of the puck, and the assists on that goal were to Brad Richards and Derek Stepan. Certainly Brad Richards looking to build off a big year that he had last year. And these Rangers are they're 0-2 to start off, but by a lot of analysts to come out of the East this year to perhaps contend for the Stanley Cup. Of course, I think for myself, I'll go ahead and stick with the Penguins, but certainly the Rangers are a very, very talented team, and we saw that as well tonight, more towards the end of the game. At 15:05 of the first period, Tyler Kennedy, big goal to put him up 2-1 for second of the year with the assist to Joe Vitale. Joe Vitale has got sort of a deceptive speed to him, and on that play, we saw an intercepted pass headed up to Joe Vitale, and he sort of beat out 2 or 3 guys with a really nice deke. He's one of those guys that, like I said, he's a hard worker, and he's got sort of that deceptive speed and hands. He was a healthy scratch last night. Jason, we'll begin with you. Do you think that was a bad move to scratch Joe Vitale, and do you expect for him to play the same amount of games this year that he played last year?
It kind of depends. I think there's been talk about having Dustin Jeffrey play a lot of minutes this year and on a lot of different lines. I think he can play in a lot of situations. Joe Vitale more of a fourth line center, but I think the scratch was probably just a matter of having a back-to-back situation and wanting to keep guys fresh and getting them inserted in the lineup as soon as possible. But Vitale's a lunch pail guy, and he brings a lot to this team, and he can win key face-offs and play well defensively. And like you said, though, he is deceptive in the fact that he is dangerous. Kennedy gave him a beautiful pass off the boards, and he made a great power move to the net. And Kennedy followed it up. But it's a nice situation to have with the depth they have on technically the bottom pairings, but a lot of interchangeable parts in this team.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting what we see with Dustin Jeffrey, especially coming off a few injuries last year, really the year before that too. Not really sure what they have there, because you look at in spurts, he's really seemed like he could bring a lot to the table, but with those injuries piling up, you're not really sure if he can make that last. Joe Vitale, always the guy you know what you're going to get from him. Just going to outwork everybody on the ice. Him coming off of a healthy scratch is going to make that even more evident for him. Joe Vitale, prototypical fourth liner, really the kind of right-handed face-off guy this team really can use on that fourth line for sure.
And as you said, he definitely is a face-off sort of specialist. He's really good at winning key face-offs, and he did a lot of that tonight. And later in the first period, it was Matt Niskanen with his first of the year. It appeared to me to be deflected at first, and in fact it was deflected off of Dan Girardi, the New York defenseman. So, sometimes the bounces go your way, sometimes they don't. Luckily, they went their way tonight. And Sidney Crosby got the assist on that. His first point of the year. He's kind of had a little bit of a slow start to the year. Hasn't really made a huge impact in either of the 2 games. Saw him a lot tonight on the power play, passing over to Chris Letang, sort of deferring to Letang, and Letang, of course, would defer to other players. So, going forward, I would definitely like to see more shooting and less passing. But I think that, as the season wears on and gets more familiar, this power play unit, new and revamped with James Neal sitting at the point, will become more comfortable and really start taking more shots. In the second period, more of the same. Pascal Dupuis with a power play goal, and I read from Dave Molinari that in fact was his first power play goal since November of 2006 when he was with the Minnesota Wild. Now, I didn't double up and check on that. At first, I kind of shook my head and said, well, that can't be right, but Dave is a guy that we trust, and if that is the case, very shocking, because even at the end of the last season, Pascal Dupuis had a really fantastic scoring streak going, and he's such a talented player. Then again, he doesn't see a ton of power play time, so good for Duper to get that goal there, make it a 4-1 lead for the Pens. And then in the third, James Neal once again with that rocket wrist shot just sort of centered in front of the net, and he scores on Marty Biron. By the way, on that goal by Patrick Henrik Lundqvist was pulled from the first time that has ever happened against the Pittsburgh. It's never been pulled against the Pens before. So Lundqvist, fantastic goaltender, and Travis back. Later in the Rangers kind of gained some momentum. It was Taylor Pixel for the third. His first as a Ranger with assist on Michael Del Zotto and Brad Richards in a 5-2 game, and then sort of in the neutral, a couple of blunders, one by Chris Letang, and then obviously Malkin just sort of turn the puck over off of range, and you kind of got that Rick Nash was possibly going to hold. He was close all night, had a few great opportunities, and finally he cashed in at third period with his first goal of the season, goal as a Ranger, and that's 5-3. So you thought maybe for a minute the Rangers had a chance back. Not so. 17 at 18:08 of the third period. It was Tang, but his first of the year in the empty net, sealing the 6-3 victory for the Penguins. Big wins over the Giants, and really big wins for the Penguins. 2-0, continuing the winning momentum. Luke, here, what is the significance of not that the Penguins have become 2-0, but also the fact that the Flyers and the Rangers are both owned? I think that either of those two teams could possibly be, you don't want to say be overstated a bit, or are they just struggling out of the gate, do you think?
I think it is a little bit just struggling out of the gate. I think these are three of the best four teams in the league. Rick Nash coming into New York, you know there's going to be some feeling out there. Look at the Flyers, too. Them losing Jágr, bumping up Braden Shen to an elevated role. Someone like Daniel Briere out for these first two games. It's awesome in a shortened season for the Penguins to get some space between them and their Atlantic Division rivals here. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but great start. Really couldn't have planned it any better than this.
I think you're going to see some rust from pretty much every team in the first weekend here, and maybe their first couple games going forward. And the Pens certainly have showed a little bit of that, taking some undisciplined penalties and just too much passing, some passing errors. But Philadelphia, I think, obviously misses the presence of Jaromir Jágr on the power play and in the lineup. Amazingly, Dallas scored 4 goals the first night, and he figured in on each goal with 4 points. And can their youngsters really carry an extra role? I mean, Couturier, Shen, and even Giroux. I mean, is he going to see some added pressure being the captain? One thing, there was some early talk or some chatter about Philadelphia possibly calling Vancouver to see about the availability of Roberto Luongo. But time will tell with that. And the Rangers, I think you have to ask yourself if they're the same team. They just might need time to gel, because they did give up a lot to get Rick Nash. Brandon Prust and Brandon Dubinsky were two big parts of that team last year. And Nash, you could tell, was trying to do maybe a little too much tonight on the ice, even though he had a pretty nice goal. But I think it'll just take some time for them to settle in. And but the thing with the shortened season, a 2-game losing streak, if it turns into a 3 or 4 game losing streak, I mean, that's almost like losing 7 in a row in an 82-game season. So you don't have a lot of time to play catch up. But I think they're definitely two of the better teams in the conference, and we'll be with the Pens into the bitter end.
And, I actually had a debate with a Ranger out this during the lockout that, the lockout, I don't want to say was beneficial to anybody, because certainly I don't believe that it was, maybe aside from the Kings trying to sort of have that extra time from, what teams usually have in a Stanley Cup hangover. But the Rangers are, speaking of a very new team in some ways. Obviously when you add a guy like Rick Nash to your roster in hopes of contending for a Stanley Cup, you want to have that familiarity and that chemistry in training camp and in the preseason by the time that the regular season rolls around. For a team like the Pens, that the core was in place already. We didn't change a lot. Obviously, we brought in Brandon Sutter, Spokoon, and Tanner Glass, and then also a few minor league guys here and there. But the core of our team was basically the same, so we didn't have to really adjust. The Rangers did, and I think that you're definitely seeing that early here. You're seeing sort of the lack of chemistry, some passing. It's not exactly on target, but what really surprised me most was their lack of really defensive coordination. I know that the Rangers are a team that is phenomenal in one particular category, not just the one, but actually in blocking shots. That's what they're known for. That's the John Tortorella defense. And I think they did that tonight. In fact, in one sequence, we saw Ryan Callahan, I believe, 8 straight shots, and he came off the ice limping. They were all really hard slap shots, one from Neal, one from Malkin, and I think one from Tang. The lack of really positioning and coordination tonight for the Rangers was a bit surprising. And I think you were right. I think they're both just stumbling out of the gate. I think that they're going to be there at the end. They just need some time to figure it out. However, 8-game season, they don't have a lot of time to figure it out. They better hope that they get sort of their stuff together quick. And the competition doesn't get any easier. When it's all interconference games, the Eastern Conference is, in my opinion, the more difficult conference. They've got Boston coming up next. Boston's no slouch, even without Tim Thomas. Tuukka Rask's still a very, very worthy starting goaltender, and certainly we all know about how physical a defense the Boston Bruins play, and with offensive players like Tyler Seguin and Milan Lucic and Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci. The Boston Bruins are definitely going to present a dangerous target for the New York Rangers. So hopefully for the Rangers, they can sort of get that figured out. All right, folks, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back with some around the NHL news. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is your host, Casey Stamp, along with Jason Kaczynski and Luke Courtright. We want to tell you tonight that our show is brought to you by the NHL Offsides. That, of course, is the page owned by Warner Lee on Facebook, a good friend, Warner Lee of ours, and you will see him coming up possibly at the top of the hour, right around 9 p.m. for our news segment, Warner's Corner, which is, of course, a debate segment, sort of a 3 minutes each topic sort of thing. Now we're going to move on to some news around the NHL. Let's start with the Stanley Cup banner raising for the Los Angeles Kings. Those who tuned into Pens and Flyers got to see the entire extravaganza, and I do mean extravaganza. Basically everything but trumpets and elephants on the ice at the Kings Stanley Cup banner raising. They announced each member of the team 2 times, I believe, when they were coming out to get the rings, and then again as they handed off the Stanley Cup. And what actually struck me as funny, they strutted out their equipment staff and their massage therapists, which is like, okay. Certainly congratulations to the Kings. By the way, very, very well deserved. I live out here in Los Angeles, and it's been a great thing for hockey. At the same time, maybe a little overbearing, and I don't think really that all of the national televised games that day around that time should have had to sit through that. We'll start with you, Jason. What was your impression of the Los Angeles Kings last season and their playoff run, and of the Stanley Cup raising ceremony?
Well, their run was, to me, it was almost like catching lightning in a bottle. And sorry for the cliche, but it was just a magical season. You knew after they knocked off the Vancouver Canucks with such ease in the first round as an 8th seed that they had the potential to go pretty far in the playoffs. And you have solid goaltending, and they were getting timely goals from rookies and strong defensive play. And good for the Kings. They came into the same time as the Penguins did, and their fans have kind of been long-suffering. The Gretzky trade was supposed to help bring them a Stanley Cup, and even though they got to the finals, they've been waiting a long time. So for the Kings fans, I was pretty happy. But as far as the banner raising ceremony goes, those things are nice, and you have to enjoy them when you can. But along with the lines of a home opener, I think they can knock the wind out of a team's sails if they have to wait too long, or if their mind is not on the game. Obviously, the Pens had to sit through 2 home openers this weekend, and they could probably focus on playing hockey, and then their home openers on Wednesday. But it's nice to recognize last season's achievements, and it's the last time to do so. But if you wait too long and you're just going to prolong the game, and one team is sitting there itching to play and another team's sort of celebrating, so it catches them off guard a little bit.
Yeah, it's usually a bad omen when you decide to skate the Stanley Cup around before the game, that just seems in retrospect like an awful idea, and it certainly showed when the Kings came out and kind of laid an egg in that game. But yeah, I was actually okay with seeing the equipment staff, the trainers, the assistant coaches, everyone like that. I enjoy things like that. I was fine with the player introductions, the rings, the banner, all that, the pageantry of it, I guess. But the fact that we saw like the first 10 minutes of that first period, and I'm screaming at my TV waiting for the Penguins to come on. But, you know, it was one of those things. I guess we waited months on end, so leave it to the NHL to push it a few minutes farther back. As far as the Kings last season, they certainly got hot at the right time. Looking at Jonathan Quick in the playoffs, nearly unbeatable. And looking at their record when they brought in Jeff Carter towards the end of the season, essentially taking half of the Flyers from the previous season. They added depth at the beginning of the year. Carter was kind of that last missing piece. And they got hot at the right time, which is sometimes all you need.
And, certainly congratulations to the Kings. They really had a spectacular season last year, sort of just slipped into the playoffs as the 8th seed in that really tightly contested Pacific Division. Guys like Andrei Kopitar and Dustin Brown really made all the difference, and of course Jeff Carter down the stretch. And really their MVP of the season, in my opinion, was Jonathan Quick. He's the reason they made it to the playoffs, and in my opinion, ultimately the reason that they won the Stanley Cup. Luke touched on it. They got hot at the right time. It was a really great playoff run. I believe they went 16-4 to win the Stanley Cup, ultimately over the New Jersey Devils. But really, really tough competition for them in the playoffs. What is it not tough competition? But, I mean, when you look at the teams they played, Vancouver in the first round, I mean, that is a tough draw. I didn't think that they had, honestly, any chance in that series, but they proved me. They went on to beat the Canucks 4-1. They swept the St. Louis Blues, who I had winning the Stanley Cup. They swept the St. Louis Blues 4-0, then to beat the Phoenix Coyotes, and then, of course, to ultimately beat the New Jersey Devils, who lost Zach Parise in the offseason. But certainly he had a terrific season last year for the Devils, and so did the Devils. They deserve congratulations as well. It's sort of sad to see all the players that they've lost this year. Lou Lamoriello, I'm a big fan of him. He's a great general manager there in New Jersey. But that's beside the point. The Kings had a great season last year, and, of course, Coach Sutter, what can you say about him? He's a guy that loves hard work, that isn't really much of a talker. And then, of course, you saw his reaction when they won the Stanley Cup. It sort of all came out in nation for his team and his staff and, of course, his management. Let's take it around the NHL, a little bit of a scoreboard update here. It is the second period of the Chicago-Phoenix all tied up at 2. In the Edmonton and Vancouver game, it as well tied up at 2 in the third period. Obviously, the Pittsburgh Rangers game is final, 6-3. Pittsburgh wins. Dallas, Minnesota wins 1-0. Zach Parise scores his first goal as a member of the Wild. And San Jose and Calgary, a great game tonight. If you didn't watch it, you might want to go back and take another look. It was a really entertaining game. San Jose wins that 4-1. And the final earlier today from Buffalo, Philadelphia and Buffalo tops the Flyers 5-2. So good to see Ryan Miller maybe having a little bit of a rebound. Let's talk about the Detroit Red Wings just briefly here. Obviously, you've got the retirement of maybe one of the greatest defensemen of all time, aside from Bobby Orr. But Nicholas Lidstrom has been not just a solid player, but a leader on that for such a long time, for over a decade, and he's won a few cups with the Red Wings. They just recently named Henrik Zetterberg their next captain. Now, if you ask me, that is a fantastic selection. He's one of those guys, not real vocal in the locker room, but he goes out and he plays every game like it's his last. He leads by example. And I think that the Detroit Red Wings organization, everything that they do is almost always right. You go up at the top with Ken Holland, and Mike Babcock is certainly a fantastic coach. Everything that organization does is basically pure gold. And when you go back and you take a look at the captains that they've had over the years, Steve Yzerman and Gordie Howe, really big names there. For Henrik Zetterberg to transcend that and become the next captain of the Detroit Red Wings. Certainly must be an honor for him. Thomas Holmstrom, by the way, retired as well. He's another guy that's been a leader in that locker room for so long. Luke, we'll start with you on this. Detroit didn't play such a good game in their first game, but routed by the St. Louis Blues. What do you think the identity of this team is going to be in the post-Lidstrom era?
I'm not really sure if they know that right now. I think after with a guy like Holmstrom retiring, Lidstrom retiring, even a guy like Brad Stewart leaving is a big deal for them. Looking at their defense right now, the top six that they dressed last night, you have Nicholas Kronwall, suddenly might be their number one defenseman. You have Ian White, who's bounced around with a few teams. Kyle Quincy, who started out with Wings, bounced around. They traded for him again last year. Carlo Koliakovo, who has had his fair share of injury problems. Jonathan Erickson, and then rookie Brendan Smith, who I do like a lot, but he's just not a first-pairing guy yet. Certainly a few years down the road, I do like him. I think he's going to pan out. But they don't really have that number one guy right now. And I think they've had that for such a long time. Even before Lidstrom was their number one, they had guys, you had your veterans, you had your Larry Murphys, your Fetisov, even going back to Konstantinov, guys like that. They've always had that stable veteran leadership. And they really don't have that right now, on the back end anyway. And even guys like Zetterberg, Dastuk, they're getting older. They do have a lot of younger guys coming in over the past few years. We've seen Justin Abdelkader, Darren Helm, kind of third, fourth line guys. They've got, Thomas Tatar, your Gustav Nyquist of the world. Of course, they're gonna jump up a little more. Now, Terry Filppula had a huge year last year, which nobody's really talking about, but they don't really have those go-to guys anymore. And as a guy like Pavel Datsyuk is getting older, they don't really have someone like that in the pipeline either. One thing they do have going for them, they've got a ton of cap room. I think they were kind of banking on Ryan Suter a little bit this past offseason, but when he and Zach Parise kind of became that package deal, that went out the window. I was kind of surprised they didn't throw an offer sheet at Shea Weber like the Flyers did, but if they want to go out and get a guy like that in the upcoming offseason, they've got tons of cap room. And we're looking at a team who hasn't picked in the top half of the first round since 1991. So that's a testament to how great they've played. They've traded some picks away, and their scouting staff, especially their overseas scouting, has been so tremendous over the years. They really haven't needed one. But when you look at their roster today, it's kind of reflecting that, where they don't have that kind of top-end young guy coming in. But they've got Mike Babcock, who you could argue is probably the best coach in the league. They do have that veteran leadership for now, but in a few years, what are they looking at?
Completely agree with Luke in the fact that their best asset right now is definitely cap room. I mean, the Red Wings are going to be linked to or in on any major defenseman that's a free agent or in the trade market. I still wouldn't be surprised if Weber still goes there somehow. I know he has to play the full calendar season with Nashville because of the offer sheet that he signed, and then he's eligible to be traded. So that's still a possibility. And they lost Stewart, who wanted to go home to be close to his family in San Jose. So they were the victim of that situation, which, for guys in the NHL to pay their dues and they want to play closer to home, they've earned that right. But, I think Mike Babcock probably has his best coaching job ahead of him to see what he can get out of this Red Wings team. Just looking at some early prognostications, it's tough in a shortened season to make predictions, and especially I think this Red Wings team is the toughest to kind of pick where they might be at. I mean, they could win their division. They could not make the playoffs. It could be really tough. When they were going through their run in the 90s and early 2000s, they had their top two lines, and they were able to bring in guys like Zetterberg and and Datsuk and kind of get them not major minutes, but they have to play a featured role. And now that those guys are older and they're looking to bring in some new talent, but, you know, they got pretty lucky. Their scouts did their homework, and they did well getting Zetterberg and Datsuk really late in the draft. And you really don't see that too much anymore. But they got some gems, and the guys they're coming in now, they're good, but they're just not Datsuk and Zetterberg good. The other thing they're having trouble with, the Todd Bertuzzi's out with mono, so they got some major players that are leaving at the same time. But the Red Wings always do things kind of the right way. I don't think they bring their prospects in when they're not ready. They leave them to be in the minor leagues, to be seasoned a little bit. They get some experience at what it's like to be a pro and play their system, and then they're not force-fed into the major league lineup there. But yeah, it's you know, they're going to have to do their homework with the money they have to spend and the draft picks that they're going to be given. But definitely could be seeing a new Red Wings team for the future. You know, you can do the puck possession thing when you have the right personnel, but what happens when that personnel is not there? So you can kind of see what kind of game Mike Babcock's going to coach his team to play this year and in the future.
And certainly Mike Babcock, a great bench manager, and we all look forward to seeing what kind of team the Detroit Red Wings will be post-Lidstrom and post-Holmstrom. Really quick here before we go to break and before we go to our next segment, rookies versus veterans. Both had very good days yesterday. Let's start with the veterans. Jaromir Jagr, 4 points in a game with the Dallas Stars, and Marty St. Louis, I believe, had 2 goals. In Tampa, Ray Whitney obviously made a huge impact for Dallas, as well as Alex Kovalev now back in the NHL with Florida. Then you had the rookies on the other end of it. Jonathan Huberdeau in Florida getting his first in the NHL. Tarasenko getting 2, not just 2 goals, 2 spectacular goals. And St. Louis, who do you think made the bigger impact on opening?
I think for me, it definitely was the older guys kind of caught my attention more. I thought because of the extended lockout situation, and I know some guys play overseas, but Jagr, I think it's just going to make Dallas a much improved offensive team. Their power play is going to be lethal. You're not going to want to take a bad penalty against them. I mean, they can shut out Jagr, Ray Whitney, Alex Goligoski is going to be their quarterback, Jamie Benn, Louis Eriksson. That's a tough first unit. So. And Kovalev is sort of the story of coming out of camp. I mean, just getting the invite from Florida and making the team. He's going to provide a nice veteran presence a little bit. Hopefully, if he has enough, I think he's got the legs left in him to play a shortened season, and if his minutes are managed. But, you know, a lot of good rookies in this league. I mean, I like Michael Granlund from Minnesota. He's not going to have a ton of pressure playing on major minutes for Minnesota. But the rookies will shine in the end, but I did like the game from the vets this first weekend.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about a lot of these young guys coming in. I've got the Edmonton-Vancouver game on right now just because wanted to see Neil Yakupov's first game, wanted to see how Justin Schultz translates to the NHL. But coming off of this weekend, the story really is the veterans. I don't think you guys mentioned Solani, who also had 2 goals, 2 assists. He and someone like Jagr, this is their 3rd lockout they've had in their career. So maybe they've had enough preparation where they've been through this before. They can certainly rebound off of it again. These young guys, though, you know, they're coming in. Some of them starting their first NHL games, and I'm sure they're hyped up on adrenaline and things like that. A guy like Huberdeau, the line he was playing on, it was him, Kovalev, and Peter Mueller, I think, who has had his ups and downs for sure over his career. So it'll be interesting to see what some of these teams do. A guy like Huberdeau, I think they're going to protect him a lot, but Tarasenko coming in and playing with a team like St. Louis with the kind of depth they have at forward, it'll be interesting to see where they where they slot out and how things progress over the season. But I think the story on this first weekend has definitely been the veterans.
Well, what a player that kid Tarasenko is. I'll tell you what, those were really 2 goals. I think one of them made the top 10 on SportsCenter, non-traditional sort of hockey program there. They don't really have a whole lot of luck for hockey down on ESPN, but man, to see him make the top 10 and to see the goals that he scored in that game, he is going to be a very big player for St. Louis. Ultimately, I don't have him winning the Calder. Who I do have is Jonathan Huberdeau in Florida. I like Jonathan Huberdeau. He's a big player. He plays big games. He plays like a veteran, really. He has all the poise and composure of it, and I think he's going to do well. But I would certainly agree with you guys. The story of the weekend was the veterans, and of course, how could I forget Team Mussolini in Anaheim? He had a spectacular game. I actually watched that entire game. Anaheim and Vancouver. Solani played incredibly. I thought Getzlaf played a lot better than he did last season. Corey Perry's chipping in with goals early in the year, and Bruce Boudreau certainly did a good job getting his team prepared out there in Anaheim. All right, folks, we're going to take a short commercial break. Then we're going to welcome in Warner Lee from NHL Offside, our new segment, Warner's Corner. And then maybe afterwards, if we have any time, we will answer some fan emails or Twitter questions or calls. So stay tuned.
Casey.
Hey, we're here live on the air with Warner Lee from NHL Offside. How's it going, Warner?
Casey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. We've got a new segment for you here tonight called Warner's Corner. First of all, we just want to mention that the Penn's Iceberg Radio program tonight by the NHL Offside page. The URL is www.facebook.com/NHL.offside. Make sure you visit it. It's got all of your NHL updates, trades, rumors, injury updates, anything like that. It's a one-stop shop for everything you need NHL, so definitely visit the page. Very good to have Warner Lee on tonight in our new Warner's Corner. It is a sort of a debate-based thing here coming in, and we've got a couple of topics coming for you. It's going to be 3 minutes each topic, and we're going to cover a lot of things, so stick with us here. It's going to be 3 minutes apiece. All right, the first topic we have tonight, opening day around the NHL. Now, obviously, a lot of fans vowed to, we've heard vows to, A, never come back after the lockout, or to hit the owners where it hurts, in the wallet, things like that. But NHL was a very, very good opening week. Warner, do you think that we're going to see any impact going forward from the NHL lockout?
Casey, we're not going to see any impact on the major league teams. The big markets. When you talk about the Canadian teams, there'll be no impact. The fans are back, and they're back in droves. In the American market, well, you know what? You got the big teams in Philadelphia. You got the big teams over in New York. But you know what? I do worry about the little teams, the smaller market teams, the Floridas that have to give away just to try to get the season tickets sold. $200 for season tickets, and they're going to throw in a jersey, parking. I mean, that's unheard of. I mean, you don't even get a deal like that for high school football. So the smaller markets, I do worry about. The fan support, I do worry about them there. But you know what? Big markets, Pittsburgh, they've grown the market, obviously, since those slump years, after Mario, before Sid. But they're back. So you know what? I have no worries. Teams are giving things away. They're giving away free hot dogs. They're delivering tickets to the season ticket holders' houses, any kind of gimmick you could get. So, you know what? I have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I'm not really buying it either. I don't think any of the fans are really going to sort of stop watching. The NHL, hockey in general, it's kind of like a bad girlfriend or boyfriend. You can't really break up with that person no matter how hard you try, because your head and your heart's still in it. As for the NHL, I was upset about certainly how long it took the season to get going, but never I would have either not watched or not gone to games had I had the opportunity. Now, obviously, you're seeing around the NHL almost every game. I think it's at 11 of the 13 NHL games opening weekends were sellouts, and the Minnesota game was actually 106% capacity, meaning that likely there was a lot of fans that had to stand outside the arena and maybe watch it on some sort of screen. I don't know. I wasn't really tuned into the Minnesota game. Certainly good to see excitement out there in the way that Zach Parise and Ryan Suter are now members of the Wild, and hopefully, they can get something going there in Minnesota, because they certainly deserve a great team. But I don't think you're going to see any real backlash, at the NHL in terms of the lockout. I think, if anything, it's made a lot of people miss hockey a lot more. And, ultimately, like I said, I don't expect to see anything in that way going forward. Switching topics here, the Stanley Cup banner, we talked a little bit about it earlier. Now we're going to get Warner's thoughts on it. Warner, they trotted everyone out there, including the equipment staff and the massage therapists. They danced around the cup around the ice again. They got the rings. They did the banner. What was your impression of their raising of the Kings last season and their playoff run?
Let me tell you something, Stamper. You know what? Somewhere Wayne Gretzky is saying, I told you so. I told you it would work in the L.A. market. You know what? He took a chance. He left Edmonton to go to L.A., and he took a big chance because L.A. at that time was on the bottom of the standings. And you know what? Great. I love it. I love the fact that L.A. won. Great team, but more so, hardworking team. When you look down their roster, nothing but blue-collar workers, and they showed that in last year's playoff. You top that off with world-class goaltending by Jonathan Quick. And you know what? Every player on that team deserves everything they get, and they deserve the Stanley Cup, because you know what? They've shown all year that it doesn't really matter, where you end up in the standings. It really does matter how you begin the playoffs. And you know what? Throughout the playoffs, I think they stunned Vancouver. First place. You got to remember that Vancouver's had a really good team for the last few years. Watch the whole series. LA dominated, and they just went straight through, all the way to the finals, all the way to victory. Love it. You know what? I love blue collar teams. I love it. Stamper, I'm looking for a repeat. I don't know if it's LA, but you know what? Give me a blue collar team any day.
Yeah, absolutely. Blue collar, that's what things are all about, especially LA King under Sutter. They're all about hard work, and that's ultimately how they got to the playoffs and how winning the Stanley Cup last year in 4 terrific series is. I thought that the banner celebration, actually Luke alluded to it a little bit earlier on the show about how it's probably a bad omen to, around the Stanley Cup once again beforehand, before the game. And I would agree with that. I'd say, you're not supposed to touch the cup. You're not even supposed to touch the conference championship trophy, just for fear of you don't want to touch something in place. And it's one of those superstitions that all or most hockey players have, I should say. Yeah, I thought that, I love the banner ceremony. Very, very nice, very showy, very Hollywood for sure, when you're bringing out massage therapists and staff. But definitely well deserved. I don't think that a lot of the fans had to have watched that. For those who wanted to watch the Pens and Flyers, I'm sorry, but you should be able to watch the Pens and Flyers. And that's just what it comes down to for that. Now, our next talk, we're going to go to buyouts. Scott Gomez and Wade Redden both bought out this week by their respective teams, the New York Rangers and the Montreal Canadiens. Now, for Wayne Redden, I think that this guy, he's already been signed by St. Louis. Let's start off with that. He's a guy that can still play really great hockey. He's got a lot of great hockey left in him. Now, he had a huge contract in New York, underperformed for his contract, and was obviously, stuck in the minors for quite some time. But either way, I think it's a fantastic thing that this guy got picked up. He's one of those strong, key depth defensemen that can help you late in the season or in a playoff series. I think it was a great move by St. Louis and a great, certainly, management staff in St. Louis to get Wade Redden signed. And, this is a guy who, if you have injuries or if one of your younger rookie sort of guys are underperforming, you send that back down, you place Redden in, boom, you've got a really good replacement. And you've got somebody who can, be a really solid defenseman for the team. As far as Scott Gomez, I don't know that he's got his best hockey ahead of him. I think he went a year at one point without a goal for Montreal, and he kind of became public enemy number one there. His best days, I think he left them with the New Jersey Devils, and I think that is actually the team that's going to end up picking up Scott Gomez when this whole thing is said and done. I don't think he'll get picked up this week. I think maybe mid-season or late season when teams are making a playoff push, you're going to see them try to go out and get some help in that way. But what are your thoughts on Scott Gomez and Wayne Redden? Do you think that these are guys that will make an impact for a team down the line?
Let me tell you, I mean, it amused me to no end to hear that Scotty Gomez is president with San Jose Sharks, but he ain't got no contract. Now, I mean, that's almost like the same as what happened last year. He's with Montreal Canadiens, but he ain't playing. So, I mean, the thing is that Scotty Gomez is not, you know what, he is a depth player at this point. He's a third and fourth liner, but he doesn't have third and fourth line jam. He doesn't have that sandpaper and grit in him. That's the problem with Scotty Gomez. He's not good enough to play on your top two lines, but he doesn't have enough grit for the third and fourth line. So the thing is that you keep him around as a power play specialist. I mean, you could, but the thing is that I wouldn't. I mean, good player once before, but you know what? I say, you know what? I agree with you. He's going to be a mid-season pickup. You got some injuries on your on your team. He's a good pickup. Wade Redden, you know what? You said it. I don't want to say it twice. I agree with you. He's a great player, but you know what though? It's overshadowed by the fact he had a big contract, and he is a good. I'd even say he's a good third pairing. You know, he's fourth, fifth defenseman if there's injury issues. He is veteran. He's been there, done that. Good pickup for any team, and St. Louis got him. Good for St. Louis. Just increased their depth, and St. Louis, great year last year. I'm looking for good things from them this year as well. Like I'll say it again with Gomer though. I don't know where he's going to end up. Have no idea. I mean, like I said, he's traveling with San Jose, but what that means, who knows?
He certainly, as I said, I think he left his best hockey back there in Jersey. But Sharks, a possible destination for Scott Gomez. All right, quickly here, our final topic, trophy predictions. So let's start with the Norris Trophy. I think it'll be between two contenders. Either it's going to be Chris Letang or it's going to be Shea Weber. Now, let me just say, starting off here, I thought that Shea Weber was absolutely robbed last year. Erik Karlsson had a great year for Ottawa, certainly racked up the points. But I think that Shea Weber's a guy who's been in contention for years now, really deserves maybe more consideration for that trophy than he's gained. Certainly, you know, when you're competing with guys like Karlsson and like Nicholas Lidstrom, it's going to be tough to win in any given year. But I think Shea Weber ultimately ends up winning the Norris this year. As far as the Hart Trophy goes, I'm going to say Malkin doubles up on him. The way he's starting out this season, he's looking spectacular, looking like he's in form, of course, over in the L for quite some time in the lockout, and he looks like he's really, really good. But the stand here in the season, as far as the Art Ross, I'm going to either give that to it's between Malkin and Sam Malkin again as well. I think that he'll double up on the Art Ross Trophy and on the MVP. The best all-around player right now. You see it every night when the Penguins play. You sit there when you're an avid hockey watcher and you were watching the game and you saw Malkin running around doing his thing, you would say, who's that guy? But that's why I like Evgeny Malkin. What do you think, Warner?
Well, you know what? I'll say one thing. Let's start with the Norris Trophy. You know what? Karlsson, great offensive year last year, but you know what? As they say, you know, winning is easy, defending is hard. And I don't think Erik Karlsson has the overall complete game. He has to work on one thing. He does have to work on is his defensive aspects. And I do agree with you. I mean, I hate agreeing with you, but you know what? I agree with you on Weber. Weber is a Norris Trophy winner in the waiting. And this year, without Suter, they're going to see that this guy is dominant. He is great. He's dominant, and he's going to win. And for Art Ross Trophy, going with Sid the Kid. You know what? Even flip them with Sid the Kid and Malkin. I really like that combo in Pittsburgh. And if I had my choice for the Hart Trophy, you know what? You know how it is every year. You know what? I was going to tell you I love Sid, but every year I make a prediction. Every year I get it wrong. You know, because it's such a coin toss. You know, because it's in a short season of 48 games, you know, anybody, goalie, defense, forward, anybody can take it. So, you know what? I'm gonna keep that option open. Ask me again mid-season. Well,
you know, as I said, it is definitely tossed up. it is these things, especially in a shortened season, because you exactly know what constitutes a spectacular season. But I think they're all good predictions. I think it is harder defending a trophy like one of the first. Certainly, good luck to Erik Karlsson. My pick's still going with Shea Weber. All right, folks. First off, we want to thank Warner Lee for joining us. Warner, thanks for being here tonight. I'll talk to you in the future.
Okay, well, thank you, Stamper. We'll see you in the future.
Definitely. We're going to take a break, and we're going to answer some questions before we run out of time here. Welcome back in, Luke and Jason. Really quick, we just saw a quick Twitter question here. We only have one, which not something that anyone can chip in on here, but Steven, Sports Fan 71, to know who mouths were. They were James Neal, King Grady. Right now, really quick before we all here for the night, let's talk a little bit about Eric Tangrady on that wing with Kenny Malkin and James Neal. Jason, do you like that combination early in the year?
I'm going to preface this with the statement that Ray Shero said the team that he had Friday may not be the same team that he has this coming Wednesday. And, Bo Bennett was pretty impressive during training camp, the black and gold game. I don't know if he's physically ready for the NHL, but I think he's certainly worthy of a shot playing on the top six and seeing what he can contribute. That being said, the first two games, Eric Tangrady's played pretty well. He struggled offensively, during his stints with the Pens thus far. But that Gino and Neal line really likes to have some kind of puck possession a little bit. They get back and forth, and I don't know if Tangrady really has that in his game. As long as he can kind of go to the net and muck and grind on that line and get the puck to one of those two, I think he's okay. A long-term solution, I don't think that's the best fit for him. Only time will tell. And maybe Tangrady is better on a third line as an NHLer, and there's no shame in that. But right now it kind of seems like they're trying to force it by necessity. But he's getting a chance. Tangrady can't say that he's not going to get a chance to play with one of the best centers in the world. Long term, I'm not a big fan, but short spurts, I can't see where it'll hurt. They had Steve Sullivan last year. I think you can make a case for a couple different guys that shared time on that line. So short spurts, not a problem.
What do you think about Eric Tangrady, Luke, on?
I do think Jason nailed it on this one. And I think it's apropos that we did discuss the Red Wings earlier, because the comparison I've tried to use in the past is a guy like Thomas Holmstrom, who was never a top six player, but he was a guy you could dump out on the front on the power play and would score you some goals. Eric Tangrady, and he's a guy who I've paid close attention to over the years, especially in the minors. He has played his best hockey with a guy like Joe Vitale. People who are going to go down in the corners, cycle the puck, and just keep their game very simple. Playing with players like James Neal with an Evgeny Malkin, gonna need a little more creativity than what I do think Eric Tangrady has in his game. Not to say he's not going to be a useful player. He's got that big body. He's going to win some battles down low. He's going to fight in front of the net, but I don't know that he necessarily has the creativity, maybe the hockey IQ that it's going to take to play with a Neal or a Malkin or even a Crosby, really. As Jason said, Bo Bennett kind of waiting in the wings. Who knows if he's going to be with Crosby, if he's going to be with Malkin. He did look good during that scrimmage, although it was just a scrimmage, and he has looked good for the baby Pens all year. But he doesn't have the NHL-ready frame right now. He would be best off with the full year in the minors. So for the time being, I think they're going to rotate some guys on that left side. maybe give Dustin Jeffrey some time, maybe give Tyler Kennedy some time. We saw Tanner Glass get some time today, too, and I'm intrigued to see where that goes. I don't think he's going to be a long-term solution either, but I said before, Dustin Jeffrey's kind of a wild card on this team, so I'd like to see him get some time here in the next few games.
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial to him as well. And as far as Tanner Glass goes, I don't know if he's going to be the solution long-term either. He played a good game tonight, but, man, got to commend him picking Aaron Ashton for a fight. That is not an easy opponent. All right, folks, we are running out of time here, and so we thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you also for bearing with us. Obviously, a little bit of mistakes here and quality of the audio and streaming and things like that. We do appreciate you guys sticking by us. This is now live radio, so there will be mistakes and things that happen. We appreciate you guys sticking by us. Luke, we've enjoyed talking to you tonight, and we will talk to you next week, next Sunday night, same time, same place, 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern, for the next episode of the Penn's Iceberg.
All right, sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Jason, thank you so much for joining us as well tonight. As always, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you same place, same time next week.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. Always good to be talking back with Penn's hockey again.
Absolutely. It is absolutely our pleasure to be talking Penn's hockey with all of our fans and listeners once again. And off here, last message, go Pens.